Lost Art with Andrew Cox, retired Master Gunnery Sergeant. thelostart.podbean.com. Get some merchandise and help support the podcast in getting our veteran voices out for all to hear. Now on all major podcast platforms. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Be a guest, tell your veteran story, discuss your veteran business or organization. Email The Lost Art with Andrew Cox at gmail.com. Andrew Cox, a Till Valhalla Project Ambassador. See the project story at tillvalhallaproject.com. Thanks for tuning in. Please enjoy the podcast that's giving a voice to our veterans. The Lost Art with Andrew Cox.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Lost Art Podcast, that podcast giving a voice to our veterans. I'm your host, Andrew Cox, and today we're having a My Veteran Story. But before we get into the episode, are you enjoying the podcast? Then go to the Lost Art website. That's the lostart.podbean.com. Go check it out, see what we're all about. Also, there's that merchandise tab. You can click on that merchandise tab, go in and get you a cool hat, a shirt, a mug, get you something cool, help support us in getting our veteran voices out for all to hear. Also, a big shout out to the Till Valhalla Project, who's out there doing incredible things. If you don't know much about that great organization, please go to tillvalhallaproject.com. Go see what they're all about. And if there's any way you can help them out, please do so. All right, with that, I have TJ Morgan here. TJ, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, sir?
Oh man, I can't complain. I'm excited that you're on here. You know, it's a good milestone for me to have you on, so it'll be good.
It's my pleasure. I'm looking forward to this.
Awesome. Well, hey, like we do with everybody, let's just kind of start at the beginning. Where did you grow up? And kind of talk a little bit about that, and then what drew you into military service?
Well, I grew up in the Pacific Northwest in Washington State for K through sixth grade or so, and then moved across the border. So I live on the east side of Washington State in Spokane, Washington, and right across the border is Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And so I
Okay.
school there to high school, junior high school, and high school, and great town. Now it's kind of more of a tourist attraction. Big lake there, yeah. So that's kind of where my humble beginnings went as a kid, and the things that I did in that area. I mean, obviously in the Pacific Northwest, we do a lot of fishing and hunting and those kind of things, and I was really into music a lot. So
Okay.
that's kind of that background of me, and in that instant, as far as the military goes, my dad served in Korea, so
Okay.
that was growing up with that, with a father he was a policeman for a short period of time, and he was in the Navy, and proud of his country, and he
Yeah.
was in 50 to 53.
Okay.
We had the rest of my brothers and were in the Marines as well, and
Oh,
so
wow.
yeah, it was. I have two other brothers that were Marines, and so it was just me being the young one, just a logical choice.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. Following in their footsteps. It's good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know if you want me to go right into the military part.
Well, yeah. Just kind of talk, obviously, you're kind of following in the footsteps. So, what was it? When did you sign your contracts to like join up? Was there any type of delay in it, or was it right after high school? How did that work?
Yeah, so for me, it was I wanted to go in as a musician, and my goal was to be in the President's Own Band. Like
Hmm.
because it was just the best, and I was a very successful tuba player, trumpet player, for most all of my schooling years, and so I wanted to go in for that MOS. I went down to the recruiter, and like most people my age, it was different going down to the
Yeah.
recruiter's office, and the realization of, hey, you might be joining that 1% of the
Yeah.
Marine Corps. And so I got to talking to the recruiter, and he says, well, you're interested in going into the band? And I was like, yeah. And he says, well, there's a process with that, and that became an audition tape, and then it was about a 3 month or so wait before the
Mm.
review of that. And this was just after high school, so I would say June of 1979.
Okay.
And from then I was thinking, well, I don't want to wait 3 months. What if I chicken out here and not
Right. Yeah.
because you always have those kind of second thoughts. I'll tell you when you're joining the Marine Corps, and so the recruiter, like normals, in recruiter fashion, he says, "Well, I know this guy at MCRD San Diego
Yeah.
that he's in the band down there, and all you have to do is talk to the drill instructor, and then ask him you want
Oh,
to walk over there and do an audition, and then we can skip this tape stuff." So I thought, hey, that's a great idea. So he says, you just have to sign an open contract. And I was like, well, what does that mean? And well, don't guarantee the band, but my connection will get you there. So uh, 30 days or so after I graduated high school, off I went to boot camp.
wow.
And that was an eye opener, as you well know.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, for sure.
Going in there and getting yelled at on the bus and going through the process, and needless to
what was going through your mind, right? As you're now joining into the going into boot camp. What was going through your mind at that point?
well, I think we probably all have a second thought about, did I make the right decision?
Yeah.
uh, because it was just total chaos, is what it
Hmm.
was. All of my drill instructors, senior and green belts and stuff, were all Vietnam combat
Oh
veterans,
wow. Yeah.
and yeah, they were hard charging, and they were going to snap you in, and it was really a time in 1979 where a lot of things were different. We were switching over from the pure green sateen
Mm,
uniforms to the woodland camouflage, but they
right.
hadn't made a cover yet for woodland, so we were wearing sateen covers with a woodland camouflage.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah, it was really an odd time in uniform transition period.
Yeah.
So it definitely was an eye opener, and I think the probably within the first week or two we had our first 1 mile run.
Okay.
And so we're out there, and at that time, the Navy was right across the fence. They had a boot camp that was right across the fence, and so
Right.
we would run parallel to them and growl at the Navy personnel over there. And if the drill instructor would have told us, "Hey, I want you to hop over the fence and go get those guys," it would have been done. It would have been. We were
Yeah.
just, we're starting to fit into that groove of everyday Marine Corps boot camp life, and we started headed back to the squad bay, and I saw all these people that were throwing up off the side of the road, and I was thinking to myself, well, it's only a 1 mile run. It's not
Yeah.
horrible. Well, guess what happened? There was a can of ham that had a hole in it, and the
Oh
entire
no.
the entire series, 200, I think it was well over 200 recruits ended up with food poisoning.
Oh my
and
gosh.
and it hit
Yeah.
the paper, and so everybody was at sick bay and throwing up, and it was just not a
Oh.
good thing. So that I was thinking, oh, this is, how much worse can this get? Well, it does get a little worse, because when we got I think back into third phase, you get a little bit more, things are running a little smoother. You get to roll up your
Yeah.
sleeves, and you get to blouse your trousers and such. And I had went up to the drill instructor and I said, my recruiter told me that I could go over to the band and audition. And I don't know if he laughed as hard as I thought he did, but he was just completely on the floor about it. And so there ended up to be no audition or anything
Wow.
at boot
Okay.
camp. Yeah, so I was in parallel. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know um, what the Marine Corps had in store for me, where they were going to put me. Of course, I ended up as an 0311 in the infantry.
Oh, okay.
So, so that was an eye opener. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
So
mean, so you finish. So at the end of boot camp, you're told, you're going to be a 0311. And then they say, okay, here you go. You got to go up to combat or not combat training. What is it?
It was
School of
infantry training
Infantry.
school back there, but
Okay.
now it's called School of Infantry. It's up at
Right. Yeah.
San Onofre, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, so I got 2 weeks leave and then reported back to my duty station. And I drove my car down there. And I was also a guitar player. And so
Okay.
I brought a 1977 Fender Telecaster with me in my car and a small
Nice.
little practice amp. And I get on base and getting ready to check into school, and they came unglued because I brought a car, and
Yeah.
I wasn't supposed to. You can't bring a car to school, and I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And so we got into school, and infantry training school was an eye opener for me because I had thought I was a Marine, uh,
Yeah.
but you're not. It's like phase 4 of boot camp. The,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
the opening day there was foot lockers were thrown in the middle of the floor, dumped
No
upside down.
kidding.
Oh yes. And so
Wow.
we were just like, I thought we were done with boot camp, and it was nope, no such thing.
It just kept on rolling.
Yeah, we didn't. We messed up, and we didn't get Liberty. I think maybe, but one weekend out of the whole school,
And
which
how long was that back then?
I think that was about a 30-day infantry training
Okay.
school back then.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you get orders to your duty station, and there's
Hmm.
where I got lucky. Uh,
Okay.
I didn't go into the Fleet Marine Force. I went into barracks duty, Naples, Italy,
Oh, wow.
and so that was like really exciting for me. They gave us a few $100s to go down and buy suits
Oh,
because
yeah.
you had to travel in civilian attire, no Marine Corps uniforms, and so we bought a
Hmm.
suit and we get to Naples, Italy, and that was quite the eye opener to be in a foreign country. And I was there for maybe 2 days, and I got called into um, the first sergeant's office, and there was a detachment from Naples in Sigonella, Sicily, that was branched off of the Marine Barracks Naples. And
Yeah.
it was a little bit more hardship duty. So instead of 2 year duty station, it was 18 months, and I had to go through a background check,
Hmm.
get a top security clearance. And I was guarding nuclear weapons for 18 months in
Wow.
Sicily. And obviously, I can say that now because the SALT treaties and they're no longer there anymore. So
Yeah.
I'm not bound by that. But it was probably the best duty station one could ask for because of the time off you got. You basically worked a 24-hour shift on a compound where you didn't leave,
Right.
and then you got a day off for training, and then you went back again and you cycled that 3 times, and then you got a 96.
Oh, wow.
So it you couldn't ask for anything better. And so we'd get the train and go up to a place called Taormina, Sicily, which is right off the tip of the boot of the main of Italy. And
Yeah.
it's a Mediterranean resort. You know, those times the nightclubs were going, and uh,
Wow.
fantastic time.
Yeah. I mean, you're definitely enjoying life. Now, was this the first time you had gone overseas or anything? Go to another country?
Absolutely. It was just so eye-opening, and especially Sicily. Sicily is quite a bit different than mainland Italy.
Okay.
Uh, and it's really beautiful. Absolutely fantastic
Hmm.
area, and a lot of ancient history. And you've got Mount Etna was our backdrop to our barracks,
Oh, wow.
and that's the only active volcano in Europe, and it's always active, it seems like. And so
Yeah.
my first promotion picture was Mount Etna in the background. And so,
Wow. That is
yeah,
cool. Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. And okay, so what were some of the things while you were doing duty there that kind of stood out, memorable for you?
Well, obviously, going to Taormina, like we talked about, and just going
Hmm.
around the island because obviously so much history in World War II was
Oh,
there.
yeah.
And so, we would go take a train, which was relatively inexpensive. We didn't make a lot of money back then. I think as an E2, my pay was about $425 a month.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so it was just exploring the islands, Palermo, Catania, which was right outside of Naval Air Station Sigonella. There was actually two
Okay.
bases in Sigonella. You had Naval Air Station base, the first base, and then where we were at, which was Naval Air Station 2. So
Hmm.
that's where
Okay.
the planes were, and our weapons compound, and the Italians were on there too. So outside of
Okay.
our outside of our compound that was guarded by four Italian guards on each corner, which uh, they
Really?
didn't they didn't really guard much of anything. They just drank wine and sat in these big towers and yelled obscenities, and that's where I learned to swear in Italian for the very first time.
Very nice. That is one of the rites of passage, I think. Anytime you go to a new country, is to learn how to swear in their language. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the conversations, because you would have to go out and walk a post for 4 hours, and then you'd come
yeah.
back in, and somebody else would go out, and you'd do that twice in the 24-hour period. And
Wow.
so it was interesting. We had a great time doing what we did. We also had some tragedy too. We had an active uh, how would I put that? When you come into the compound, there's a guard, and it's post 1, and he's just basically there to check people and vehicles that come into that compound with mirrors,
Right.
etc. And so when he was changing post to a new Marine coming on, they got to playing a little bit of grab ass, and
Oh,
he ended up shooting him by accident right near the throat and with a 45. And
whoa.
yeah, and he became a quadriplegic. And uh,
No kidding.
in fact, it's how life is really strange. About 6 months ago, I got a call through another friend that was in Sicily from the sergeant of the guard, and he had been suffering post-traumatic stress for 40 plus years due to
Yeah.
that incident. And
Wow.
the government was telling him that he never even had served there. And so myself and quite a few other people wrote a statement for him to the Veterans Administration for his claim for post-traumatic. And it really took a toll on him, but um,
Yeah.
that was tragic as that. But
Holy cow. Well, I guess that's definitely a lesson to learn about playing grab ass and stuff while you're on post or well, when you have weapons, period, you know.
yeah, because that is a deadly force post where you're locked and loaded. There's no playing around
Yeah.
on that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then my duty station ended there, and I thought I was going back to Camp Pendleton, and that was not the case for me.
Okay.
It was a shorter distance between Sicily and Camp Lejeune.
Ah, yeah. Okay.
And yeah, and so I came back to Camp Lejeune and went to Second Battalion, Sixth Marines.
Okay.
So which historically was the French Fortigé, and
Yeah.
so uh, that to me it was like, holy, I'm in the infantry in the Marine Corps now. And I
Hmm.
found out shortly that all of that nice leisure guard duty caught up to me after I hit supply and got all of my grunt gear. Within a day or two, and this is in the middle of summer in Camp Lejeune,
Oh
and
yeah.
I'm from the Pacific Northwest. I knew nothing of humidity. I knew nothing of fireflies and the microscopic bugs they called chiggers. I never knew any of this stuff. And the day that we went out was a 20-mile forced march in
Oh
full
my
combat
God.
mode.
You showed up and a couple of days later you're doing a 20 miler.
It was
Wow.
brutal. I didn't drop, but boy, I'll tell you, it crossed my mind on many occasions to get
Yeah.
out of there. And it was I was like, oh, I am not in grunt shape.
Yeah, you got a little spoiled whenever you were in Italy, and I could definitely see how that would hurt you quite a bit there.
Oh, I did. It was an eye opener, but in adjusting to the FMF was quite a transition
Yeah.
because if you're always training, you're always on the move. You don't spend much time at the barracks. You're either out in the field, on a ship, on a plane, going somewhere,
Hmm.
um, weeks, months at a time. And so it was definitely an eye opener for me going to that. And infantry at the time, and this is when Ronald Reagan was just
Mm,
elected. So this would have been mid 81.
okay.
And so there was a lot of movement within the infantry. We had a lot of things going on in the Middle East. And so they were moving people around, and I found myself out of the Sixth Marines, and then they had moved me to fill up slots for the Second Marine, Second Regiment, so 2-2.
Oh, okay.
And so I went over there, and then off we went to do some amphibious assault training down in Puerto
Hmm.
Rico. And
Oh, wow.
that was the first time coming off the back of the USS Nashville on an Amtrak at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
Very different, and you're locked in this Amtrak, and you're in the belly of this amphibious ship. Somebody comes by with a giant steel bar and just smacks it right on the side, and that's the driver's cue to gun it and
Wow.
off the back of your ship. And if you've ever seen an Amtrak, I mean, they come off the back of the ship and they sink
Yeah.
probably.
Completely submerged.
Oh, absolutely. And then they pop up, and the driver opens the hatch up and then pushes his seat up, and there you go. So we did some training like that, and then went on to the island of Vieques,
Hmm.
Puerto Rico, and did that training. And then we went back to the ship, and then we did old Mike boat assault at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, okay.
So that's those
Wow.
open bow kind of things like you saw at Normandy, where they were coming in and the gate goes down and
Right.
people run off the end. Well, there's a Navy guy in the front with who's testing how deep the water is, and so we could hear
Hmm.
that in the background about hey, it's 7 feet deep, 6 feet deep, 5, 4, and then he was at a constant 3, and so they let down the gate, and there was probably I think 50 full combat loaded Marines on that,
Wow. Yeah.
and off we went, and he had put us on a sandbar.
Oh, no.
And so we went from 3 feet to 4 feet to 5 feet, and where people were on their tiptoes. And this is in the middle of the night. You don't know the terrain where you're going. You don't know nothing.
Yeah.
And you're grabbing the Marine to the left or right that maybe only 5'6" and trying to hold
Oh,
him up and figure out a way how you're going to get rid of your Alice pack so you don't drown. And luckily,
wow.
we kind of Fred Flintstoned it, on your tippy toes until we got some traction, and we started going back up. But um, it
Holy cow.
yeah, it could have been not
That
such
could
a
have been
good.
really bad.
Yeah. So that was the amphibious part of that, and um,
Well,
I got
let me ask you a quick question on that.
sure.
You talked about your Alice pack and stuff. Now, were you guys practicing waterproofing the Alice packs and stuff like that as you were going in for this?
Oh, so you just kind of they are somewhat um, waterproof, but
Hmm.
hefty garbage bags usually,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
wrap everything tied up in there. And um, there back then, those are the old. Everything that we got was all Vietnam stuff. So we
Hmm.
were eating C rations. Well, MREs
Yeah.
never hadn't come out yet, and those weren't great, but but they did the job for sure. And then of course the Alice pack. And equipment now, let me tell you, is just so much better now than
Oh yeah.
back then. The footwear and this stuff. So back then, those old Alice packs, they put all the weight on your lower back and your shoulders.
Hmm.
And so not the best thing. And I can tell you at 63 years old, uh, you're
You're
paying the
feeling
price.
it.
You are paying the price.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh man.
So that was kind of an eye-opening thing. And then we ended up getting back to Lejeune, and I just had a I still had this band idea in the back of my head.
Hmm.
And it had been a couple years since I played the instrument, and I'd been in the Marines for a couple years, and I decided to take a walk over to Second Marine Division Band. I found out where their barracks were, and I
Hmm.
walked in there and introduced myself and said, I'm over with Tutu, and told the whole story like we talked about here. And
Yeah.
he says, well, can you march? And I go, I grew up on John Philip Sousa marches. And so he handed me a tuba and
Hmm.
put that thing on and did sight reading and did some marching. And he goes, we're going to get you some orders over here. And I thought, oh, great. So I was really excited. I thought, oh, finally,
Yeah.
some things are going to come through to my original MOS. And I got back to 2-2, and the gunnery sergeant, old Vietnam vet, and he was a mean one too. I'll tell you that. He says he said, Lance Corporal Morgan, he said, you're going to go to Jeep school. So they send people to Jeep school to learn how to drive a Jeep and a trailer and back them up and all that kind of stuff. And I says,
Yeah.
I don't know about that, Gunny. I'm getting orders to the band. And he was just started laughing. And I think within a few days of me going to Jeep school, those orders came in, and I got transferred over to Second Marine Division.
Nice.
And
Okay.
and then that to me was an achievement that I thought that's pretty ballsy to go do a walk-on audition
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
and not play for 2 years and then get orders. Although it 3 months, is a probationary type of a thing, and so
Right.
I thought that's not a problem. Biggest adjustment. By the way, I just absolutely loved the music. I knew most of the Philip Sousa marches. I grew up on that kind of stuff, and so the
Right.
transition on the music end was really simple, and it was really nice not to be in a cattle car somewhere or up and down the road with combat loads. But
Yeah.
for me, the toughest transition was the uniforms because I was a fluff and buff type of an infantryman, and
Yeah.
we didn't starch much of anything.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
in the division band, it was like Irish pennants off. I mean, you're looking good. So
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
the hardest part of that. But
Not
after,
not to mention did you starch them your uniform so much that they could stand on their own?
yeah, pretty much. We had
Yeah.
cover blocks back then because we
Oh
still
yeah,
had
yeah.
not switched over to the woodland. We're still using sateen covers.
No
And so
kidding.
they were
Wow.
on the paintbrush and starch and get
Yeah.
those, you could use them as a weapon, I suppose. They were just,
Like a throwing star.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Wow.
So after, I was there a couple months, and then the worst news came of all, and that was Ronald Reagan had decided to reduce the force of the Marine Corps uh,
Mm,
by about 40,000 Marines.
wow. Yeah.
And so all lateral moves, all of that stuff was it was done. It was everybody had to go back. So I had to end up leaving the band and going back to the infantry based
So
on
you went
that.
back to 2-2 at
Yep,
that point? Yeah.
I went back to 2-2, and for me, I was pretty disappointed
Yeah. Yeah.
it happened because I would have made a career out of the Marine Corps, no doubt. I was playing jazz guitar in the jazz band for Second Marine
Oh
Division,
wow.
and also playing marching band and stuff. And so,
Yeah. Wow.
so
Yeah,
I'll
that's unfortunate, sent you back, and especially once you finally got where it was that you really thought you were going to be in the beginning.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
know.
there was a lot of um, infantry in who I was as a person.
Hmm.
So the disappointment was the band stuff, but I really fit into that band scenario really well. But I also had such a great connection with the Marines and the infantry. They're a different type of Marine, They're
Hmm.
they're a cross section of the United States that have come from all backgrounds of life. Uh, you have nothing in common with any of them,
Yeah.
except for the fact that if you're in a foxhole or in whether it's doing combat readiness evaluation testing or out in the field, those are the guys that you live and breathe with. And I was in a barracks back then too, so squad based stuff. So it was all squad bay action.
Yeah.
So you go to the bathroom with 10, 15 other people sitting right beside you. You
Yeah.
shower with 10 or 15 people beside you. And so that connection was there, and it's just a strange connection of just people that you would probably never be friends with
Yeah.
in one way or another, but you have this connection of, I got your six, and that's to me was the biggest thing I missed when I left the Marine Corps was those people. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And those bonds are very strong. You can years and years and years can go by without seeing somebody, and then you finally see them again, and it's just like no time has passed, and you right back where you were.
yeah, and for us too, it's like we had little black books where you try to get people's addresses when
Hmm.
they were going to a different unit and try to keep in touch and you never I think maybe there's maybe five people that I have ran into on social media purely
No
by
kidding. Wow.
accident and
Yeah.
reconnected with them. Um,
Wow.
and it's great to talk about oh, I remember this and remember that. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that you're just so young then when you look back at how young you were and the responsibilities you had in protecting your country, and
Hmm.
that was a common bond that you can never take away from anybody. But
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, and Tutu was a really great outfit. And after I got back from the band, we were on the road again and off to Okinawa, Japan.
Oh, no kidding. Okay. So was that on a Mew or something like that?
No, actually, we were just it was just a 1 year
Okay.
rotation.
Gotcha.
Um, yep, and we flew from North Carolina to Anchorage, Alaska, and then
Nice. Okay.
Anchorage, Alaska to Clark Air Force Base in the Philippines. And then we
Oh, okay.
C-141 with the nice
Hmm.
cargo netting seats and
That's right.
your gear and sea bags in the middle of it. And we got on the plane, and this is where I developed a little bit of post traumatic from for flying. We got in the C-141 and we took off, and we were up in the air no more than 5 to 10 minutes, and we heard a very loud bang, and we didn't
Oh
know what
no.
it was. But we looked at the flight crew, and that's your litmus test when it comes to are things okay or not so okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they didn't look completely 100% sure on what's going on. When we ended up turning around, and they never said anything, we landed back on Clark Air Force Base, and we got off the plane and turned around and looked at the plane, and the entire front of the plane is gone. The whole nose,
What?
the whole nose cone was
Yeah.
just fell off. Something hit it or something, and it sheared off. And
Wow.
that pretty much kind of, I just was like, holy crap.
That's insane. The
Yeah.
whole front nose. Woo.
Yeah. Yep. So I don't know if something hit it, or somebody
Yeah.
didn't know to tighten the screws down in the radar cone day at work, or what it was, but it was
Oh
nice.
my
So
gosh.
we had to sit on the flight line for another 8 or 10 hours until another plane came in.
I'm
There's
I'm
something
sure
about
your I'm
Go
sure
ahead.
your heart would be racing the next time you go to get on a bird. I mean, that's a big event to happen, you know?
Absolutely. I think that, and it goes to say too that, that's flying in military aircraft. I mean, and I've been in a lot of them, not just the C-141, but obviously in the infantry part, we were being transported either by a cattle car or
Hmm.
CH-53 training,
Yeah.
a 46 or stuff like that. And I can clearly remember the first time I was in a CH-53 and I was looking at, and there was hydraulic oil leaking out of it and all of these things, and
Yeah.
everybody was just casual. And I had asked the one of the guys in there. I said, "Is that normal for that stuff to be?" He said, "You don't worry about when it's leaking. When it stops leaking, that's when you got to worry about."
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've heard that more than one time.
Have you
Yeah.
have you had the pleasure of being in one of those?
I have, yeah. 53, 46, both of those. I haven't gone in like an Osprey or anything. I haven't flown in one of those.
Uh,
That's the newer versions of stuff. But yeah, I've definitely had some fun in them once or twice. And you're
yeah,
right, there's stuff leaking all the
yeah.
time, which apparently is good.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I've been in Hueys, and we were out in the field once, and we got picked up in a Black Hawk, which we
Oh
were doing
wow.
some cross training for the combat readiness test, and that's all the components of infantry, artillery,
Hmm.
all of the things that you have to do an annual test, or they observe you to make sure you're combat
Right.
ready. And I did receive a meritorious mass on one of the McCrest tests for being a law gunner, which was kind of kind of
Oh,
nice. I guess
nice.
I was pretty good at shooting moving targets and got a meritorious mass for it. And
Very cool.
yeah, so I
Yeah,
thought that
that's
was
neat.
kind of cool. But
Yeah.
have you been to Japan?
I have, yeah. Okinawa. I have been there. It's a beautiful island. I loved exploring, going and checking things out, and I just really enjoyed my whole experience there.
Yeah, me too. For me, it was um, quite an eye-opening experience. We did not have any of the restrictions that a lot of them have from time to time. I know my son was at
Hmm.
Camp Hansen, and they had an incident with a local and a Navy person where they had Cinderella Liberty and were in lockdown and that kind of stuff. But
Yeah,
we didn't have that when I was there. I was up in Camp Schwab, which
yeah.
basically that's all Grunville up there. And so,
Well, that's
um,
up basically in the jungles up there.
yeah, oh boy, I'll tell you what, we were there during monsoon season, and there was I remember when I had never seen rain like that before, and we were out in the field. We were camped on the side of a hill, and back then, you had two people carried half of a tent, right? And then you
Right.
combine
Yeah.
tents together, and it was raining so bad that we just took a little bit of a break, and we're inside, and we have two ponchos that are snapped together, so we had opened it up. And we were putting leaves and watching them go from one side of the tent,
Yeah, yeah.
just whatever. And a habu snake
Oh
came
no.
through the trench and right through the middle of our hooch and out the other end. And you want to talk about freeze? I mean, we didn't even move because we thought, oh, that thing's going to want to get dry.
Oh my gosh.
I had so
That would have
many,
given me a heart attack.
I've had so many interesting stories about field stuff that
Yeah.
uh, in Camp Lejeune, we were out in fall, I guess, and Um, we were sleeping in a bivouac area where there's, the whole company's out there. And
Hmm.
um, the gunnery sergeant that I told you he was a pretty testy guy. He had
Yeah.
turned on the light, woke everybody up, turned on the lights on the Jeep, and he held a copper head in his hand that he
Uh-huh.
had killed, and it was huge. And I was just like, oh, there's snakes here. Great. That's exactly
Yeah.
what I want. But he said, by the way, it's mating season, and usually these travel in pairs. And I didn't know if he was pulling the leg of everybody or whatever, but the battle buddy I was sleeping next to, everybody was kind of on edge a little bit about a snake being in the bivouac area.
Yeah.
And it was warm enough where you basically just slept with your whoopee, right? And then you just
Uh-huh.
laid on your sleeping bag. And about 2 or 3 in the morning, my battle buddy, he says, Morgan, he said, I think there's a snake in my sleeping bag. And I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
gotta be kidding me. And he goes, no, what do you do? I said, just a sec. So I got my e-tool and then I got my moonbeam, right? So it's got the
Yeah.
red lens on it. And so I said, okay, on the count of three, I want you to get out of that bag, and then I'm just gonna whack him with the e-tool. And so this whole tension's going on, and I don't even know if he made it to like three. I think he was gone like on one. The flashlight came in, and I just struck down onto the sleep, and it was a branch that had fallen from the tree
Oh,
and landed into sleeping bag. Well, we woke up the entire bivouac area, and that trusty gunny come out and said, "Yeah, Morgan and Johnson, you two are now on fire watch." So those things, it
uh,
always happens out in the field. There's just always something going on out in the field.
yeah. That's a good one though. I like that.
Yeah, I'm not a
Yes.
big fan of snakes, and I ran into more bugs and snakes and banana spiders.
Oh my God, those things are huge. Yeah.
Oh, that to me, when you're in the middle of the night and their webs are between two bushes or two palm trees or whatever,
Hmm.
and you walk into that and you don't know if there was a spider on there or if there wasn't, and you have to have situational awareness where you're quiet.
Yeah.
It's
where
not conducive.
where whenever it like goes on your face and the only thing you think is like, oh my God, a spider's on me. You want to scream like a little girl.
Oh, it's just horrible. Lejeune has a way too of, and I think that was in Panama when we went to jungle training, or maybe Vieques. Like, it's been too many years where we ran into that, but nobody told me about the chiggers too. Have you experienced those?
I have,
Uh,
yeah.
I had no idea that there was even anything like such, and so I got out of the field and I have bites. I mean, everywhere where they have burrowed under your skin. I mean, by
Yeah.
the hundreds. And
Like especially like your ankles, like
yeah,
any
boot
place
bands,
that yeah. Yeah.
waistband, boot bands, and so, and I don't know how to get rid of them. And they said, well, there's a couple different ways. You can scratch them till they bleed and throw alcohol on them, or you
Oof.
can use clear fingernail polish and you just go over each little bump and it smothers them.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah, that's the route I took. But there was guys in the shower where they would scratch them until they bleed and then have their buddy throw the alcohol on them.
Oh, that has got to be painful. Oh my
It's
God.
quick though.
Yeah. Well, yeah, true.
But
Man.
I had never had seen anything even close to being something like we have ticks where I'm from, but
Yeah.
chickens are a different breed, and you're so tired in the field that you'll lean against a tree and try to catch a 5 minute nap, and that usually that's not a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. While you're catching the nap, they're taking full advantage.
Yeah, yeah. So where were
Wow.
we? We were back on Okinawa, right?
Okinawa, yeah.
Yeah. So Okinawa, and besides being a wonderful place with history. We would go out at any given chance and go to different places on the island. And I was a scuba diver and snorkeler, and so we'd
Oh,
take
nice.
advantage of those. Me and another guy were out hiking. We had found a live grenade from
No
World War II
kidding.
sticking out of the
Wow.
mud, and well, we thought it was live, so we just put tracksuit jackets around it and went
Hmm.
back to base and then called and then EOD went and took care of it. I don't know if it was live or not, but we told them where it was.
Wow.
They brought us back our jackets and we were good to go. And
Wow.
many
That's amazing. There was still stuff there,
oh, there's got to be so much stuff. We went and that was such a battle for Marines, Okinawa
Oh
was
yeah.
just huge. We went to the area where the locals were jumping off the cliffs instead
Hmm.
of being captured, and um, snorkeling with sea snakes, which was not a great idea. But back then, you're bulletproof and invisible, right?
Yeah.
Nothing can hurt you.
Yeah. I
Uh,
I don't think I would do that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
Schwab
that's
there's
too much.
right on the beach there, so
Yeah.
it's good. And then we had a rope from our barracks to the chow hall because during monsoon season you'd have to hold on to the rope
Oh yeah.
to get chow, so,
Holy cow.
for safety reasons. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so um, in the middle of that tour, they split up the battalion, and so
Hmm.
half of the battalion went to Fuji and did training,
Okay.
uh, and we went to an island called Diego Garcia for 3 months.
Oh
And
wow.
if you know where Diego Garcia is,
Hmm.
for those who don't, it's about 4 degrees below the equator, straight
Hmm.
below India. Very strategic, British-owned territory, and that was a big eye opener. It's just a horseshoe-shaped island, fairly
Yeah.
small from ocean side to lagoon side. It's maybe a mile. It's the widest spot, but
Right.
quite a bit of history there. A lot of merchant marines come in there, and then obviously it was later used for uh, Desert Storm, strategic
Hmm.
fueling and ammos, and of course post 9/11, great area. But that was kind of an eye opener too, and we talked about bugs and snakes and stuff. They had crabs there. Uh, they had
Oh.
they had land crabs that would mass by the thousands, to go from the ocean side, and they lived in burrowed into the sand in tree roots and stuff. And you
Right.
would sleep in the field, and you'd wake up, and literally there would be hundreds of crab just walking over the top of you, and
Oh
just
my
on their way to
God.
the lagoon. It it was just the first time it was just like holy moly. And then they
What
have a
was that, like a daily thing they would do? They'd go back and
yeah,
forth every day?
they just migrate over there to feed or whatever they did on the lagoon side. Much more to eat there
Wow.
than on the active Indian Ocean side.
Yeah.
And then
Holy
when you
cow.
drive your Jeeps or trucks or deuce and a halfs or whatever, they're in the middle of the road and it's just crunch, 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 crunch. And
Oh my God.
yeah, yeah. And then they had coconut crabs, and I had never even heard of those. And so Diego Garcia was an active coconut plantation back in the day.
Okay.
And
Hmm.
then the islanders that lived there originally, they had relocated them during the nuclear testing phases because all of those atolls and places around where they could use and test nuclear weapons and etc. That
Right.
um, they were just relocated to some other place and then became a British. I don't know if the British owned it then too. I'm not quite sure of the history on that, but these coconut crabs would crack up coconuts with their claws that fell off the
Oh my
tree,
gosh.
and they're about the size of a medicine ball. Uh, oh, they're just huge. And
Wow.
we had found one, and it hissed at us, and so we thought, that could probably taste pretty good. So we killed it, and we took our steel pots, and we're cooking the claws in there and whatever. And our second lieutenant came up and said, "What are you guys doing?" And we said, "We found a crab, and those are much better than the sea rats." He said, "Did you know they're protected, and it's a $10,000 fine?" And,
Oh
and
shoot.
we're like, no. Well, he ended up. He says, "Here, give me a piece of that." So then we knew we had him in, right? Because
Yeah,
he
yeah,
was
yeah.
part of the crime. He said, "Just bury it and don't touch them." And so we
Yeah.
found the lesson. And they only eat coconut, so really, really sweet. really good.
No kidding. Wow.
But they were
Well,
protected on that island. So
yeah, not a lot of people are eating those then.
no,
You're one of the
no,
very few that delicacy from that area. So,
yeah. Well, you eat a lot of weird things when you're in the Marines, and
yeah.
especially infantry. Uh,
Hmm.
we had snared a monkey in Panama, and
Oh, no kidding.
during jungle training, we got to
Wow.
taste that. It tastes like chicken. So
Really?
yeah, and then when we were, I can't remember if it was in the Philippines, but they were doing the drinking of the cobra blood thing, and I'm like,
Ooh.
nah, and that's a rite of passage, and I'm like, nope, I will draw the line right there. But there were people that were doing it. In Okinawa, you
Wow.
probably saw the snakes in the whiskey, right? In the
Oh
bottles.
yeah, the habu sake is what they
Is it
called it. Yeah.
Habusaki?
Yeah. And
I
I
think.
actually ended up I bought a jar or a bottle of habu sake, which had the snake in it, and I still have it, but a lot of the alcohol is like dried up or whatever. But the snake's still in it, and we used to take sips of it every now and again. I don't anymore, but
Uh,
it's just for looks now. But
I was at the VA and at the dental clinic, and we had got on this kind of subject about weird bugs and stuff, and they had never even heard. So I brought up a picture, and they thought it was fake, and I go, oh no. But I
yeah,
think there's a ritual too that you have to be like a six pack into a beer before you'll even try it. It's just not something you come right out of the chute with and think, hey, I'm
yeah,
gonna try that. Usually it's under peer pressure, like most things in the.
yeah. Very true. Very true.
But I, yeah, I did like it. Okinawa was just it was just an awesome place to be.
Yeah. How did you like did you get out with the locals a lot and visit with them?
Yeah, so we went down. We were always down in Kin City, outside of
Hmm.
because that was a great place to be. And then you always find these favorite little restaurants, off the wall kind of mom and pop stuff where you can find the best yakisoba in
Hmm.
in the planet and do that and then you meet and people. I bought like got in with a tailor and got
Oh
custom
yeah.
clothes made, and for cheap too. It was just very reasonable. I had bought went out and made friends at a local stereo shop and ended up
Okay.
buying Japanese stereo stuff and sent it home. Um, and then, much to my demise, it's like you can't buy that stuff in the States. So when it broke down, people are like, just
That's
throw it
it.
away.
Yeah.
But that was the
Wow.
day, back then it was, and living in a squad bay too was because boom boxes were the thing back then.
Oh yeah.
So if you're in a squad bay with 60 other people, you'll have sections that listen to um, kind of the country, and then the hard rock people, and then the R&B people, and then kind of the rappers delight rap starting to
Yeah.
come up kind of guys. And so when you walk through a squad bay, everybody's got one of these ginormous boom boxes, and they're all playing different kind of stuff. If
So it's
you,
almost like walking into different regions as you're going down the squad bay, right?
yeah, it is. It exactly is. And people just, playing dominoes here or whatever. And um, so that, it's really kind of and that's why I said about the people, because you learn to like different things. I mean, I was never
Hmm.
a country guy, and I was kind of a hard rock, old classic rock kind of guy.
Yeah.
But then you get introduced into different things and different places that you go, and um,
Hmm.
yeah,
You learn to appreciate other things, that at least I did,
yeah, yeah. It's definitely an eye opener too, because um, a lot of cultural things that you're not even tuned into, from
Right.
somebody from Macon, Georgia, and you're from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho.
Hmm.
You have nothing in common, but you end up having a lot in common by the time a few months roll.
Very true. Yeah. It's amazing how quickly you can have that bond too, depending on what you're going through. So
Absolutely. I mean, you
yeah.
go through, I mean, people get married and divorced and girlfriends and such, and Dear John letters when you're out in the field.
Mm,
I got a Dear
yeah.
John letter in boot camp.
Oh,
Yeah, in
well,
boot
that's
camp.
a fun way to get it.
Yeah. Well, there's a crazy story with that because I got it and she broke up with me and the drill instructor had overheard me talking to one of the other guys. It was on a Sunday when we could have actually a little conversation with each other. So
Right.
when I first got there, they had a thing called a hog board. I don't know if you had
Oh, yeah, I
experienced
know
those.
what it is. Yeah,
It has
yeah.
a little cork board that was in the back of the squad bay where you put your picture of your girlfriend up.
Hmm.
So I had put a picture of this girlfriend up, and then a couple weeks into boot camp, she broke up with me with the Dear John letter, and the drill instructor called everybody from platoon 1070 up to the front and said, Morgan got a Dear John letter. So I want everybody to grab a piece of paper and a pen.
Oh no.
And then I want you to write, Candace was her name. I want you to write Candace and tell her what you think about breaking up with Private Morgan in boot camp.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
So, yeah, so she ended up getting like 60 letters that were not kind.
Wow.
Yeah. So I had never ran into her again at all, but I thought, oh, probably it's not. I don't think I'd want to when I got home run into her because she just you can imagine the content of said letters.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, it,
It's really giving her what for too.
yeah, and in colorful language, I'm sure.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
I could just see her going to the mailbox, getting these letters. What's going on?
Oh yeah, it's like Lieutenant Dan letters or Forrest Gump letters when he's writing Jenny, right? And they're just
Yeah,
stacked
yeah,
like that. So you just rubber band around them. I
yeah.
don't.
Oh, I love it.
I wouldn't assume she read them all because probably after a couple, she probably got the theme. I would think.
Yeah, yeah, probably so. I wonder, women do this a lot. They hold on to stuff like that. So I wonder if she's out there somewhere and still has all these letters. That would be very interesting.
A piece of history. I'd read them.
Yeah, yeah, I'd be interested to see what all was said.
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't good for sure. It's just, but it's part of what you do with people around you. I mean,
Yeah,
divorces and problems with families and all that kind of stuff. You share that stuff in the Brotherhood of the Marines and yeah, so that's life, I guess, in the Marine Corps.
yeah, very true, very true. So you did, so it was 1 year in Okinawa, right? And then
That's it.
you went back to Camp Lejeune?
Went back to Camp Lejeune and was getting ready to EAS. So I thought about coming back in um, and trying to get that band connection back, but
Hmm.
um, my guitar playing really kind of took over um, kind of my passion. So for me, it was, well, let's get out of the Marines and let's go become a rock and roll star. So
Oh, nice.
that was my direction. Uh,
Okay.
and so I don't know if you want to get into that, but it ended up with a 25-year career and as a musician.
Yeah, well, let's go into that. So you get out of the Marine Corps and you're pursuing becoming a rock and roll star at this point. So kind of tell us what kind of how that went down.
So it's basically, you start out like anything else in life. You start out in these very simple, simplistic bands that play not very good environment, corner taverns and you're like maybe a Friday and a Saturday night and so you try to keep improving yourself and just like a lot of things in life, the way that you improve things on yourself is you get around people that are better than you.
Yeah.
And so that kind of was my circle to do. It's like you got to pay the dues in these small honky tonks, if you will, and that kind
Hmm.
of stuff. And then you would quit that band, and another opening would come in a band that's maybe playing a little better of a club, and so you end up doing that. And for me, it was I gave myself kind of a timeline to do full time, and so
Hmm.
that and um, sustain myself by playing music full time. And so I was playing 6 nights a week, um,
Wow.
and touring all over the Pacific Northwest and down to Wyoming, or Southern Oregon,
No
Northern
kidding.
California, yeah, and just kind of doing that tour. And it's
And
very
you were playing, what kind of music were you playing?
we were playing classic rock and top 40 cover
Got it.
stuff,
Okay.
and then working on your own material too, just like everybody else. But back
Yeah.
then, obviously, it's not like now where you have YouTube and you got all these things that you can record at home and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it was a way different environment. That most of it is if you had to be in the right place at the right time, have the right guy see you, and so
Hmm.
that's why I kind of gave myself a timeline on the full time end of things. And so
Right.
um, we got a little bit of an opportunity, but it kind of fell through maybe a couple years into it where Huey Lewis and Bruce Hornsby were touring together, and Bruce
Okay.
and Bruce Hornsby he didn't make the trip, something mechanical or something, and so we were playing at this a club in a Sheraton that Huey Lewis's band and him were staying. They were playing in the Spokane Arena the next day, and they came
Oh,
into
wow.
the bar and saw us play. And so then there was the after party, right? So after you get done
Yeah.
playing, it's like come up to Huey Lewis's room, and so we were up there and we're
Oh,
talking to the
wow.
tour manager about, hey, you guys want to just for local flavor of this thing, and it fell through, but it was just kind of that first glimpse. Well, it's looking where you're at. You're in the room with all these great players, and Huey Lewis, back then he was huge. The sports album had just come out. I don't think there's one song on there that didn't hit the top 40. It was just
Yeah.
saturated. I think that was back in '86. I want to think somewhere in there.
Okay.
So
Wow. That is really cool.
yeah, so that was that kind of thing, and then it just never developed after that on the full time end. So I went back to college.
Hmm.
Still played music, but it was only 2 and 3 nights a week.
Yeah.
And then we started doing a lot more originals, and we eventually started opening up for bands that came through town.
Hmm.
I had opened up for Styx,
Oh,
and
wow.
I opened up for REO Speedwagon, for Loverboy, Little River Band. Put together a band and opened up for BB King. Uh,
No kidding. Wow.
Paul Rogers. Yeah, so we were just in the right place, and that connection came from a friend of ours who had owned the sound and lighting company that rented out to venues and professional people that come through. Because a lot of those
Right.
guys, when they travel, not like now, they may just come with their back end gear, their drum sets and
Hmm.
lights and PA are local and help and stuff. So just being in the right place. And the first time I was on a stage, we opened up for Styx. I think must have been 97 ish.
Okay.
And it was at the top of the Silver Mountain Ski Resort. And the venue was about 8,000 people or so.
Uh-huh.
And beautiful backdrop in the woods with the woods in the back of you. And the angle of the people was just like it was really steep, probably like that. So
Yeah.
you're just looking at this wall of people and scared beyond belief because we were doing 45 minutes with all original except for the last song.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
and then we did a deal. So it was quite intimidating the first time you did that, but some great road stories and some great people within there, and some of those organizations, some not so great, some a little bit too I'm important kind of guy.
Uh, it
Yeah. And it
happens. It
really wasn't
happens.
the musicians that were that way. It was more the people they surrounded themselves with. So like tour
Uh,
managers and stuff.
I
Yeah.
see. Yeah, yeah. No
Yeah.
kidding. Wow. Now, did your band, did you have albums that you put out and stuff like
No,
that?
well, we recorded, on back then we did some recordings just on tape, but
Mm-hmm.
never really went to CD back then or any of that kind of stuff. So uh,
Right.
I don't think back then because nobody could afford studio
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, it was expensive. I mean, when you're looking at recording back then, it's a whole production type of thing. You got to go in a studio and they have all the equipment, and I mean, you're paying for it. So,
Oh, yeah, and that's definitely why you get these record deals and sponsors and
hmm
guys back then, we'll give you a penny for every album that you sold, and
yeah.
they really didn't. Then they found out they didn't have ownership rights of their own music.
Oh yeah.
It was definitely a different time, but so for me, it was there were some great accomplishments in the music end of things, and then I also had passion for education, and
hmm
when I got out of the Marines, my first inclination was to be a fireman. So
Okay.
uh, I took that route and and I was what they called a pay call fireman.
hmm
And so there was only like back then in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, it was like the only time an opening came up is if somebody passed away or retired or something. So
mm
I went in and I got some extra credit for being a vet. And so I went in and did the physical fitness part of it and took the test and I was like number two on the list for one position. And
Oh wow.
I went into the oral board and completely blew it.
Oh no.
Well, and the reason was it was like they gave you a scenario, and I can't remember the exact thing, but it was like, okay, so Bill is trapped inside of a building, and you're on the outside, and he's screaming for help. What do you do? And then the Marine came out in me. It's like,
Oh yeah.
you you run in there and get him. Nope. That was the
Yeah.
bad eye. So I went from number two to number 13, I think, or 14
Oh no.
because of the bad answer. But I did end up getting a few years later, maybe 10 years later or so, I ended up getting in the volunteer fire department and became an EMT and did that for
Okay.
15 years. So that was
Wow.
that to me was kind of my first passion, but then engineering and that kind of stuff took
hmm
over, and that's where I do now, civil engineering. So
Okay. And so you did how 15 years like EMT work?
yeah, combined between the Coeur d'Alene
Okay.
and the Newman Lake Fire and Rescue, District 13 is
Got it.
EMT. And I was older then too, and I like the medical end much better than the because as a volunteer, you a volunteer fire department, you may arrive at a structure fire and it's just you and one other guy.
Oh,
So
jeez.
yeah, it's like who's available, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes those scenarios happen. We had a fire across. I lived in on a lake then, and there was a fire across the lake, and it was just me and another guy. We went in there and we went through two air bottles and got this fire knocked down and when you're done you go out and you sit and rehab and take some oxygen in and relax because it's pretty tough work, and I was in my mid
Yeah.
40s I think then, so it was like a lot of work. And then other firefighters came in and the owner of the home was going, my cat, and one of the girls that showed up late, me and Brian had put the whole fire out and everything. She went in and got the cat, and she was on the front page of the newspaper and all this other.
Oh no.
Why Brian and I were like, we're sitting there going, well, we just knocked this whole fire down between two people, and she rescues the cat and gets on the paper. But
That's messed up.
yeah, but it's just a lot of work. I like the medical end a lot better than
Yeah.
uh, and then we were also wildland firefighters too. So,
Oh
uh,
wow.
and that's a tricky business. That's
hmm
I would rather be on a structure fire because you know where it is and how it's contained. And wildland firefighting can jump from treetop to treetop, and next thing you know, you're You're trapped with no
Surrounded.
exit. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that was always a scary little bit to me, but no, it was good. It was good. And
Wow.
the best part about that is when we go back to the Marine Corps is all of that drive and all of
Hmm.
those giving you purpose and all that stuff was
Yeah.
instilled the day that you stepped on the footprints for sure.
Hmm. Yeah.
And you still carry that. I still carry that today.
Yeah.
Um, that,
Absolutely.
that goes into leadership. That goes into what you do personally and your drive and commitment to what you're doing in life.
Hmm. Oh
Um,
yeah.
and you owe that all to the Marine Corps,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. That's very true. Yeah. Um, and now you said you also doing civil engineer stuff as well. That's what you're
Yeah, I
doing
work for the
now?
yeah, I work for the city of Spokane. I'm getting close to retirement.
Okay.
Um, so juggling all of the things that I juggle as the current commandant of the Marine Corps League and then full-time civil engineering. Luckily, I live in a very veteran-friendly city,
Hmm.
and they let me have all the time off that I need to do the things to represent the community in the Marine Corps League,
Yeah.
as well as being close to retirement. My job's much easier now. I don't have to do I don't have to do a lot of the stuff I did in years past. I think they have sympathy that they put you on pretty
Yeah.
easy jobs, and plus what I'm doing now with the Marine Corps League, that they're just
What?
really good to work with.
Yeah. And or league. I mean, there's a lot of things that you have to do, a lot of places you have to go and, represent and stuff like that.
Absolutely, yeah. My travel schedule for November, December is insane.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow. Well, I
yeah.
know we're going to get into the Marine Corps League when we do the fireside chat part, but you know, uh, what is there anything you want to kind of talk about with what you got going on there, or do you want to wait until the fireside chat to talk about that?
No, we could wait for the fireside. We don't want to get
Okay.
your content on that. So,
Okay.
no, it's been you brought up some great memories here for me. Um, you
Yeah.
know, boot camp memories that um I thought I'd never forget. I will share one boot camp story with you that
Yeah.
I thought was I didn't think I'd ever see anything like it. Back in '79, when you get to third phase and you can smoke. So
Oh wow. Okay.
they take you out by the wash rack if you want to smoke and you're a smoker, and you had no cigarettes, and so by then it was kind of a treat. So they'd say the smoking lamp is lit, and you go back there by the wash racks in between the squad bays, and you
Yeah.
get an upside down garbage can, and just like you do at Chow Hall, there's a certain way that you smoke, and you pass that garbage can lid, and ashes go in there,
Yeah.
and then you get that's kind of the third phase where you're kind of getting back to being more recognized as a human instead of a substandard human. Uh,
Yeah.
and one of the recruits had stolen a cigarette from the pack, and those are all controlled
Uh-oh.
by the drill instructor, right?
Uh-huh.
And so at night he's sleeping in his duty hut, and he smells cigarette smoke 2 o'clock in the morning. And
Oh no.
he opens that, and it reminds me of Gunny Hartman, right, from Full Metal Jacket. Comes out
Yeah.
there in his underwear, and who's smoking in my squad bay? And he was in the head, and he lit up in the head. I'm
Oh
like,
no.
smell that. It's like, so they brought him out by the ear, and he said, everybody, the lights came on,
Oh
get up
yeah.
front here. And so he had to stand at attention, and we're all kind of sitting in a half school circle, just going, oh, what's going to happen to this guy? Well, he goes in his duty hut and he pulls out an entire pack of cools and said,
Oh man.
you want to smoke? We're going to smoke. Open your mouth. And he put all 20 cigarettes in his mouth. So it's like that big around.
Yeah.
And he lit him, and he said, start puffing. I want to see that thing glowing like a jet engine. And it just he just started puffing and puffing, and the whole thing was just this huge fireball red cherry. And he walks over and he takes the steel garbage can, throws all the garbage out of it, and puts it over his head.
Oh no.
And he says, I want to see smoke come out the bottom of that, and not and I, until I see smoke, you're not getting out of there. And
Oh man.
he's puffing and puffing. You hear him in there coughing and puffing and everything, and then smoke starts coming out the bottom, right? Within 30 seconds, he just blows chunks
Oh.
in that thing. And we're just sitting there, and I thought, this has got to be the craziest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Drill instructors just have a way with recruits that they can come up with some of the most bizarre stuff ever.
That's pretty good though.
Yeah. I don't think he smoked much
Yeah,
anymore,
probably
but
never again.
no, no. And I'm sure that we
Wow.
probably had to do 100 push-ups or so and pay for our sins. And
Oh yeah. Yeah,
from
yeah,
one
yeah.
fall, y'all fall, right? Is that the
That's right. That's
that's
right.
that's the deal. And so that was a boot camp story. And then the last one, when I went into the boot camp, my father had told me, he said, what you need to do is be incognito. You
Hmm.
need to be invisible. Don't draw attention to yourself. Don't do nothing, and you'll make it through your boot camp easy. So that's kind of the mindset that I took, is just to be a shadow on the wall somewhere and not draw attention. Well, we were probably close to third phase, and we were in the chow hall, and you get a minute, 2 minutes to eat whatever you
Yeah.
got. You got to go stand in line with your tray, and then put your silverware in this part, and then your tray in here, and whatever. So I had no time to finish about a quarter glass of chocolate milk in a plastic cup. Um,
Uh-huh.
and the recruit in front of me turned and hit my tray. And guess where I was standing? I was standing right next to every drill instructor. They're
Oh
sitting down at
no.
one table, and it was like slow motion. This cup falls off of the tray, and it starts spinning, and it hits the ground, and it comes back and spins the opposite way, and then does it 360. And every single drill instructor that was had their back facing ended up with chocolate milk all over their chucks,
Oh no.
all over their Charlies. And I thought, oh, that's it, I'm done. And there was 10 of them, and they all got up and they ripped my name tag off, and then they,
Oh man.
who's your platoon? Who you with? And then they each one of them took me out to the pit and slayed me so bad that uh, I couldn't walk. It was like I thought I was going to throw up. And from that point to the till graduation, you could have just tattooed a big bullseye on my back, because I was
Oh
in for
man.
and you can't explain it to him and say it wasn't me, it was
No.
the guy in front of me that hit my cup. And but
Oh
I didn't
man.
have to pay for their dry cleaning, so I guess that was okay.
Yeah. Well, you paid in other ways though.
Yeah, oh boy, did I. And that did they say make it rain when you were in, so you get all
Make it.
sweaty? And
Oh no,
then,
I didn't hear that.
yeah,
No.
so the pit was just this all sand, and they had pull-up bars and stuff, so that's where they'd usually
Yeah.
just slay you. And then the first time I ever heard that, he's like, make it rain. I go, what? I can't make it rain. So it's throw the sand up in there. So you just take handfuls
Oh,
of
I see.
sand,
Yeah, yeah.
throw it up in the air, and then it just sticks in every crevice and orifice that you're sweaty. And
Yeah.
another
We
another great one.
sand cookie or what did they say? It was something like a sand cookie or something. I can't remember. They'd make them roll in the sand.
Were
And
you San Diego or Paris
I
Island?
was, yeah, I did San Diego. Yeah. So I was a recruit there and a drill instructor there as well. So
Oh, you
uh,
were.
yeah.
Oh,
So
I'd like to hear some of your stories. I'm sure that you.
I do have some pretty funny ones. Of course, you always remember the funny ones, but yeah, interesting times, especially as a drill instructor. But let's see, I'll give you one. When I was a senior drill instructor, it was coming up on Christmas, so I told all my drill instructors, "Hey, you guys take the time or whatever. I'll take them for Christmas." And my series commander was there, and I was like, "Hey, you need to come on deck tomorrow morning when I wake them up." And he was like, "Okay, sounds good." So the next morning I had a Santa hat and I put it on and I come out and I woke everybody up and they get online and I told them to look at me and I was like, you know what today is, right? And they're like, yes, sir. I was like, well, Merry Christmas. And then I got all the recruits, 10 at a time because you could do 10. And I pull them up on the quarter deck and I would IT them and rotated through the whole platoon before morning chow. Took them to morning chow. And then after I took them to the pit, I IT'd them in the pit. And then I took them back to the squad bay. I was like, well, let's go around and see what everybody else is doing. So I went on every deck and every single deck they're watching movies and eating pogie bait there. And I was like, oh, you guys want to do this? They're like, yes, sir. And so I get back down and I was like, well, get out on the road and took them back out to the pit and IT'd them again. So the whole day, like every hour on the hour, I'm ITing the recruits. And then there was they had to go to the base theater to watch a movie. So I marched them over and the regimental sergeant major was there and he sees my platoon. Of course, they're disgusting, right? And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm training recruits. He goes, it's Christmas. He's like, you don't do that. And he's like, I don't want to see any more of it. I was like, oh, okay, good to go, sergeant major. And so they went in. Well, when they got out, of course, what I do, I marched them back and I teed them some more or whatever. So I guarantee you they remember Christmas.
Yeah, they're probably all comfortable with their lickies and stickies, and it's a great day, and here they're getting slayed.
Yeah, they had it. It was an interesting day for them for sure. Yeah,
Uh,
but it was fun. I enjoyed it.
our senior used to come back from the NCO club at midnight or 1 in the morning and wake
Hmm.
everybody out and go march them out on the parade deck drunk.
Really?
Yeah, he couldn't even call cadence. He was just slurring his words, and
Wow.
we were chuckling and to ourselves. It was just, and it was common for him to do that. Like once a week, he just Friday night he just go get tore up at the NCO club and then come back and get get us out
Yeah,
of.
you definitely wouldn't see that nowadays. That's for sure.
No, my son was in the Marine Corps, so he joined in 2011, and he went in
Okay.
on the delayed entry program, and
Hmm.
so he was a poolee, and he kept telling me, he's like, Dad, he says, not like when you were in. He says they don't swear at you, they don't do any of this
Yeah.
stuff. Like going, I don't know about that. So he got to boot camp and his first letter home, and he's like, boy, are you right. They were they just tell you they don't swear or do any of these things. That's the PC thing to do, and I'm glad to see some traditions. We're still alive.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's definitely a lot of rules for the drill instructors, but there are ways to, I guess, kind of skirt the line a little bit.
Yeah,
No, you can't go too far, but you gotta mind your p's and q's a little bit.
yeah,
But they do still try to keep it alive, which is good.
yeah. I went down when my son got corporal. He wanted me to come down and pin it on him,
Oh, nice. Yeah.
and and he said, I want you to do it the old way.
Oh,
You
okay.
take the backs off of the
Yeah.
chevrons and you just drill them into the collarbone. So he was an MP. He was with First LE, and the captain says, "Do you have somebody here that you want to pin on your chevrons?" And yeah, my dad's over here. So the whole First LE is lined up there, and there's new guys, old guys, whatever. So I take off his lance corporal chevrons, and then I put the corporal ones on there, and I'm giving him the father and son talk about leadership and the things that you want to pass on, and et cetera. And then I
Yeah.
just drilled them in, I mean hard, where I looked at the platoon and they were in gasp. They were just like, and there's nothing anybody, he says, nobody can touch you doing this. You're doing this on your own. It's not like anybody else is doing it.
Yeah.
So they were the new guys just got out of Fort Leonard Wood, and their first duty station was First Delhi. They were like, I hope that doesn't happen to me, and et cetera, et cetera. So the next day we go to the USS Midway for a
Yeah.
tour, and we're walking up the gangplank, and my boy is like gingerly walking up, and I go, are you okay? And he goes, He goes, "Nah, I got it yesterday." And as soon as he said that, I knew what it was, as they pinned on that mud stripe, right?
Yeah.
So as we're walking up the stairs, I'm poking that, just his thighs, just poking it. And he's just like collapsing. And so I was thinking to myself, well, that's good. They did, those brothers took care of him behind the closed doors and got him in the knee and the pin on that
Yeah.
blood stripe. So that tradition was still going.
Yeah, that's they frown upon those types of things nowadays, but every rank that I did as I got promoted, I had somebody pin me at least. My last two ranks, so Master Sergeant, Master Guns, it was my wife and my kids. I had them
Ah,
bang it in because you can't really do it with anybody else, you know. But I could say at least every single rank I had it
yeah,
done.
but the
So
line gets much shorter as you get.
yeah.
I
That
remember
is true.
I remember getting PFC in Sicily, and everybody in there was a PFC or higher. And so
Yeah,
I went, and you went, you know, 50 people deep one side, and then turn around, come back the other way.
yeah,
My,
yeah,
I was, and then we had one guy there who's a real small guy, maybe a buck 20 in weight, and maybe 5'4". They
yeah.
ended up breaking his arms, both of them,
Oh my God.
from tagging
Wow.
because they just
Jeez.
punch you right in the arm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Holy cow.
Yeah,
Man, that poor guy.
yeah. He ended up medicaled out too because of it.
No kidding.
Yeah, he didn't want to
Wow.
be. Yeah, I don't think he really wanted to be in it. He was so small. It was like,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean anything. I've met small guys that are just
Oh yeah.
insanely good. I mean, so I met Sergeant Major Castle about
Hmm.
3 or 4 years ago from the Battle of Fallujah, and
Yeah.
he's not a big guy.
No, yeah, he's a small guy. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's got a tremendous heart. I mean,
Hmm.
that guy, and the things he does for the junior ROTC down in Las Vegas area is just amazing.
Yeah.
And he's an amazing Marine and a human being
Yeah.
like him.
I got to do his um retirement ceremony
Oh,
when I
you
was
did?
at Pendleton. Yeah.
Huh.
So it was
Did
pretty
you
cool.
did you know anybody named Sergeant Major Mario Fields?
Fields, he's kind of a shorter guy as well, right?
Yeah, he's like
Yeah, yeah,
five
yeah.
five.
Yeah,
He's
he
got
is a motivator.
oh
Yeah.
that he had that on YouTube where he's how do you motivate the motivator? So I saw that video on
Uh-huh.
YouTube. And I thought this guy is great, and he's funny, and he's
Hmm.
just engaging with the line groups and stuff that he's around. And I went to a Marine Corps Association dinner in San Diego
Hmm.
at Carlsbad, and um, lo and behold, he was sitting at my table.
Oh, no kidding.
And, yep. And so we started. I said, that is him and his wife were there. And I said, are you the guy that does the motor? He said, that's me. And I was like, so we developed a bond. And this was probably 2017.
Hmm.
And then I started running for national, like top four offices. And
Hmm.
we had become friends. And so to this day, I still call him and contact him. And he congratulated me for being national commandant, and he's got a podcast, I believe, and I think he does a nonprofit profit
Hmm.
motivation speaker kind of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, he's a great guy too. Were you
Yeah,
at
yeah, he
Pendleton
is.
your whole time, or
And oh no,
besides Okinawa and
no, I did so 29 Palms was my first duty station,
uh,
then Okinawa, then I first Marine Division, then down to MCRD San Diego, then over to Camp Second Marine Division. Then I was at the schoolhouse for a while teaching, then back to First Marine Division, down to Third Mall, and then I ended back at the School of Music as the senior enlisted advisor, and that's where I retired.
uh, I just last week took the wife and child. The President's Own was just in Spokane, so
Oh yeah.
we went and saw them. What phenomenal players.
Oh yeah, yeah. And now, have you had the opportunity to see the Friday evening parade or anything in DC?
No, I have not yet, but we are. Actually doing Max Marines here next week, which is a legislative. I haven't even been on 8th and I before. That'll be my first experience
Really?
next Friday. It's a luncheon, legislative luncheon, Max Marines, and so I'll go to that. But I've seen it on TV, I guess.
You now, where's that at? Is that in DC where you're going?
Yeah, so the Max Marines luncheon, yeah,
Yeah.
so that'll be on week this next Friday at 8th and
Okay.
I.
Oh, at 8th and I.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we'll do that.
I
Then I'll
can
do,
I can get you let me talk to a buddy of mine. He's the drum major for the President's Own. Let me talk to him. He'll probably get you a tour of the facility if you want.
oh,
The band hall and
that'd be
maybe
great.
even could take you down to see some of the really cool stuff. I got to go down and see Sousa's actual baton that he conducted with. Uh,
Wow.
they have some incredible things there. And just to see all the facility is really cool. But let me
The
talk to him and I'll
history
see what I
is
can
just
work out.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the history
Yeah.
is amazing. Yeah, so we'll do that. It's a busy week for me next week. I mean, and we can get into that in the fireside chat or
Oh yeah,
whatever
for
you
sure.
want to
Yeah.
do. The
Well,
question,
let's end this one and then we will jump into a fireside chat. How's that sound?
that sounds great.
All right, cool. Well, let me do the exit here. So, to all the listeners out there, if you're struggling, you need some help, anything like that, don't forget the VA does have some great resources. You can always dial 988, press option 1. You can text 838-255 or go to veteranscrisisline.net, click on that chat icon. Any of those options will put you in contact with somebody that can help you out. But remember, one veteran life loss is one too many. I care about you. I know TJ cares about you. The whole veteran community cares about you. So please reach out for help. And if you're out there, you're not struggling, make sure you reach out to your buddies that you serve with and ask them how they're doing. And if they need a helping hand, please give them that helping hand. All right, TJ, one last time, I want to say thanks to you and to all the listeners. Stay motivated, change your socks.